each one of the doctors, naturopaths, mentioned salt. I'm talking about original sea salt or Himalayan salt with 84 essential minerals, is the bridge to our healing. Salt, protein, good waters, and to alkalize your system. So really study what it is to alkalize your system, because colds and flus can't exist in an alkaline system. They thrive in an acidic system. Gout, arthritis, dermatitis, sinusitis, anything with itis. Itis means inflammation, which is our main cause for most Western issues these days. Itis is acidic, so anything itis can't exist in an alkaline environment. So get your greens on board, even taking a bit of baking soda and a shot of, with a bit of lemon and honey if you like, every day, fasting twice a year. I could go on and on.
So thank you very much for coming on to the Sauna Show. Really appreciate that you made time, and I'm really excited to grill you on all the different knowledge and experience that you have.
Thank you. It's a real honor being here. Thanks for asking.
Thanks for saying that. Hey, Jules. So I guess recently you have been known for producing really world-class sunscreen that is uninvasive to the body as well as to the environment. And that's amazing, and it has had great traction around the world. But how did you actually get into all of this? Like, what was your path to look into really amazing sunscreen? Was that quite a natural flow for you, or did it take a decade or two?
Yeah, it took a decade or two. It wasn't actually skincare that got me into it. It was working with a lot of different cultures around the world. So I started as a nurse, a registered nurse, and made my way to the outback of Australia because there's no nursing jobs in New Zealand, strangely. And then ended up in London working for the surgical unit there at the Military and Royal Hospital. And there was just this call of the wild always. It felt strange being in a world of hospitals and drugs and injections and chemicals. And I'd been brought up, not in quite a conservative way, but my grandmother was my saving grace, really, going to her garden as a little girl. And she would take me for a tour of the garden and teach me of the plants and what they're used for. So we really had a lovely connection to the garden through my grandparents and being brought up on the farm. And then being stuck in London in this concrete world, I just had this call to go to India. Actually, I was accused of practicing witchcraft with the patients there because I kept coming back to natural ways, and I kept coming back to creative visualization and how we can heal ourselves with plants rather than needing pre-meds and that sort of thing. So yeah, I ended up in India, and I went for a 6-week holiday, but 2-3 years later I was still there getting lost and found. And I had a motorbike accident, and it was a shock. We didn't have helmets then. It was singlets and shorts basically when you're riding around on your motorbike. And a dog shot out from the bush, and we hit it, and just straight on the gravel road at about 80 k's an hour.
Yeah.
So we got these wounds, the kind of wounds that nurses don't like. I thought I was going to be disfigured for life. Actually, I was right down my right side was really broken up. And because we were in the middle of nowhere, it was a bit of a worry. My partner was unconscious on the road, and these women came out and just gathered us up in our bike up and took us into their mud hut and just started healing us with all things coconut. It's crazy. Coconut toddy, the alcohol that grows on the trees, coconut oil, coconut milk, just washing the wounds, healing them, singing mantras, I suppose, singing their songs. And we were in a lot of pain, so the children went out to the herb garden and found the most awful plants they could find, bitter tasting plants, and heated them up with other herbs and gave them to us in coconut shells. And we just started drinking these. It was, the taste was sort of off the planet, but I just had this happiness and pain relief washing over me. So I suspect it was the opiate based. I didn't care. I was just like, keep that going, kids. Mm-hmm. yeah, it was just feeling amazing. Anyway, the next day, the wounds had granulated and healed over, and then 2 weeks later, I'd never seen wound healing like it. So that set me off onto a cycle of traveling for the next 10 years around the world, learning of indigenous and traditional medicine in so many different places, from deserts to mountains to communities out in the jungle. And it took me back to the call of the wild that was so loud for me. So that was where I went from my nursing to back to the forest, back to the garden. And then when I came back to New Zealand, I did my naturopathy and medical herbalism, and that got me back onto the path of actually having certificates or diplomas on the wall that could justify the knowledge that I'd picked up on my travels.
It's a funny way of yeah, justifying your knowledge. Eh? Yeah, but
Yeah,
I guess that's the world we live in at the moment.
that's right. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And so then I had a baby on the way, and I was making all sorts of remedies from the plants around us, really eager to learn ancient New Zealand plant ways, or
Mm.
rongoa, we call it, New Zealand native healing medicine or Maori medicine. And a kaumātua took me under his wing and started teaching me the plants here. It's quite sacred knowledge and quite guarded and protected for good reason. It's been corrupted in a lot of ways, and some recipes have been patented and now illegal to use for the locals of this land and many other places as well.
Mm.
So I specialized in rongoa and started making all sorts of remedies, ended up with about 28 formulas, was selling out as I was exploring. I was using my family and friends as rat labs, and then it was selling out. I started selling at the markets and with other naturopaths, and I couldn't keep up with demand. I'd turned my garage into a bush lab, into a forest lab, and we had 800-year-old forest wrapped around us. So I really had the Garden of Eden right at my doorstep. And with the babe on the way, I thought, gosh, even sunscreen is just, I wouldn't put that on a newborn. I wouldn't put that on a baby. I knew what the damage it did environmentally, but now I had someone else to think of, and I didn't wear sunscreen myself because of what I ate. I had a healthy diet and essentially didn't need it. But for a little one, I thought I need to start thinking, how can we make 100% natural sunscreen from the plants growing around us?
Mm. Oh wow, that's amazing! And so that led you to explore what it actually takes to, I guess, create something for the wider market, which I'm sure has implications of like, is to last for a certain time, can't be contaminated with anything. There are probably quite a few restrictions that then probably changed your path again of actually looking into what does it take to manufacture on a big scale now.
Yeah, which was very different to making a few litres here and there just for my family and friends. Um, Absolutely, because I was determined to keep it 100% natural
Mm.
and determined to get up there with the chemical alternatives, which were, they're invisible and they smelt great and they could last forever on the shelves. And so I went to the experts, and they said that's actually impossible. If you could do it, the big guys would have done it by now. You can't do 100% natural on SPF 50. So that's what got me thinking, well, I can. I'm not one to be told you can't. So yeah, just bloody minded really, and just kept working at it year after year, kept putting it in for tests at Dermatest, or it's called Eurofins now, and it will come back as SPF 22, SPF 24. And so incrementally it was working up over the years. I was able to get the stability with my recipe, so I could keep it 100% natural with my preservatives, which is a recipe of our native bush medicine. And eventually it got up to our latest tests, SPF 65.8.
Oh.
So we became a world's first SPF 50 plus, we can call it, which is very high sun protection, and a lot of stability tests over the years as well. And often I'd have eureka moments, and I've done it, and then 8 or 9 months later I'd see the jars lining the walls of split formula, and I'd be like, oh, it'll start again. So often you didn't know until time just started to unravel. The formulas that I thought were stable weren't. So I had to go through some really rigorous testing. So it took me 18 years. I actually decided to certify it and test it globally because I knew it would be a target. Because the industry told people that it was impossible, I knew that it would get a little bit of attention. So I certified it globally, FDA and Europe, Asia, and got it certified as 100% natural, cruelty-free, non-GMO, or to the hilt. And then I launched it, knowing that I was confident that we've passed all the tests necessary. Yeah.
Ah, that is amazing. That is amazing. Yeah, yeah. Good on you for having such tenacity to get to that point. Yeah, I've never heard
Thanks.
that they can go like, wow, over almost 66 SPF. That's amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Hey, what are the risks and the unknowns when we look at conventionally made sunscreens, besides the environmental factors, which I'm sure we'll talk about as well? But seeming we often focus on health on this podcast quite a bit. Let's start with that aspect of sunscreen. Like, what do we know about the ingredients that normally are used in sunscreen and the problems with health?
Yeah, it's a great question because I think we just put the sunscreen on every 2 hours and not even realizing that what we're putting onto our skin is absorbing into our body. So we're essentially eating it just without our mouths. And when you look at it that way, it's like you're eating a couple of tablespoons of chemical sunscreen every few hours. And we know this because it's a UV absorber. So the chemicals that they use, the octibenzone and octinoxate and a few of the others, they are called UV absorbers. So they actually absorb UV into your skin, and they're designed to do that. Um, there's been lots of studies and autopsies on cancerous tumors where they've found not just parabens but oxybenzones that can only get into the body through sunscreen. There's also been studies on just taking urine samples from randomly from just the average person walking around. They did this in America. 97% of Americans had oxybenzone in the urine, which means that's the excretion from the body. The kidneys have already gone through the waste products and are sending it out. It's already toured the body. It's gone down to the mother liver, who says, right, we need you there, as far as calcium, zinc, minerals, whatever we put into our body. And it's gone into the bloodstream. So wherever the blood goes is where these chemicals are going. They're hormone disruptors. Hormones are like the keys for most of our processes, not just what we think of with the female and male hormones, but they're also responsible for our digestion and lots of other processes in our body. So it disrupts what our hormones are made to do. It's got all sorts of other problems that occur just on the skin. So there's been no tests with six of the harmful chemicals, and they have been shown to be harmful by the FDA, and yet are still passed through to the consumer, which is worrying. It shows not just are they carcinogenic, but has there been any tests done on 6 of these chemicals cooking in 30-degree heat in the sun on our skin, a petri dish, all day? No, there's been none. And so you can let your imagination go now, and I'm not going to make any claims here on what those chemicals can do, but we know that it causes severe health issues, not just on our skin, but within our bodies, and it accumulates because our body doesn't know what to do with these chemicals. So it sets up little rubbish heaps in the body, and then our body needs to excrete it. So it can excrete some of it through the urine, but there's other ways also that the body packages or encapsulates these chemicals. So it's not a good story. It's not a nice story. And that's just what it does to our body. And then we go and jump in the shower, and of course it washes off into our waterways.
But before we go there, I found this is a point that I feel can't be emphasized enough, because to me it's not quite as intuitive to think that way. But basically, what you put on your skin goes right into your body and into your bloodstream, which I could imagine, that's just my idea about it. If you eat stuff, maybe it gets even filtered better than if you would put it on your skin. But making that connection of like what's actually on the bottle, and you see chemicals in there, and you see alcoholic and glycerin coming from petrochemicals and so on there. This is exactly what you imbibe, what you put into your body, and what your body has to deal with. I think if you would say to the same person that puts these chemicals on their skin, please have a tablespoon every 2 hours, they would reject it, not because it probably doesn't taste pretty good, but saying like, why would I put this on earth into my body? On the skin, fine, but into my body, no. But really what we have to learn is like, on your skin is in your body. It's the same thing because it's completely absorbed. Where do you think it goes? It doesn't evaporate. And once you really get that, I found it still wrapping my head about that concept is not as easy. And so I don't blame anyone not seeing that connection straight away. But we just said it really clearly, like whatever is in your chemicals that you put in your products that you put onto your body goes into your body. And that's the same with shampoo to quite a degree and so on. It's toothpaste. Yes, you spit a little bit out, but there's also a lot so, and with skincare, obviously all of it goes in. It doesn't go anywhere else.
Yeah, it's amazing when you make that connection. You can actually realize why you get overloaded in the day, why you might get migraines or headaches, knowing that whatever we put on our skin is found within the bloodstream in 30 seconds and found in the urine in 20 minutes. So this discovery, and you could do research. FDA is really putting this information out there now, which is fantastic. So people are starting to take notice. But yeah, it affects our day. It does. If you're getting drowsy or your energy is low, just think, well, I had 3 tablespoons of chemicals for breakfast. My shampoo, conditioner, body wash, put on my sunscreen. And then I did decide to have 2 more tablespoons every 2 hours or 3 hours at the beach. So you could be on the best diet ever. You could be drinking as much water as you like, feeling really healthy, and yet you're still feeling a little bit toxic or not sure how your body is getting rid of these chemicals, synthetic. It's you may as well be eating paint or plastic with some of them if you look at the ingredients. So let's take notice. I mean, petrochemical is just that. It's made from the petrol industry, and look at Vaseline petroleum jelly. Often petroleum's written in capitals. I mean, why would we put that on our babes? Why would we put it on our lips? We're starting to make the connection now, which is so good. It's fantastic that we're waking up to this. But yeah, exactly. Let's make that bridge now and realize that if we wouldn't have it in a plate and eat it with a spoon, why on earth would we put it on our skin?
Hey, there's another thought that just came to mind. What do you think about Botox? Like that goes right into, you put it into the body, but if I don't know enough about it other than you have to redo it, which means it's the same story, huh?
Yeah, it's botulinum toxin. So if your dog drinks out of a lake that has botulinum, the back legs can be paralyzed. They can't walk. So why would we start injecting that into our face, so close to our brain? I don't really know much about it either. I stay away from that side of the beauty industry. It seems dangerous to me. It is a botulinum bacteria. Doesn't feel good to be injecting into your skin.
Oh, it's actually alive in a sense, is it?
It's still paralyzing, but I don't know enough to really comment about that. It's still paralyzing the muscles, and so therefore it feels like it's active.
Oh, wow. Gee, all right. That's interesting. Oh.
Yeah.
Look, I have a couple of questions just to follow up on what you were saying before. So just to play devil's advocate. So let's say I live in a city and there's actually a water treatment plant between my drain and the ocean. So you're basically saying it can't be filtered out. Quite a few of these ingredients will just go right through it, that they will not be filtered out. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah. A lot of the ingredients, they just don't break down. For example, 1 drop of oxybenzone in 6.5 Olympic-sized swimming pools kills coral. That's how dilute it can be. And we're putting 46,000 tons of it in our oceans every year. So enough to kill all our coral. That's just from sunscreen. The filtering system, I mean, of course, there's lots of fluoride and things that are used to kill off it does kill off a lot of properties of water, but you're essentially getting dead water that's carrying a lot of these chemicals to the ocean. So it's designed to be a living, conscious entity carrying memory, and we can keep throwing chemicals at it to kill off the other things and parasites and DNA. Goodness knows what else is carried in there. But I think we need to come back to purifying our waters with conscious ways. It's the least we could do.
So you were saying that we can also find these chemicals in fish. You mean in some fish, or is that actually like chemicals out of sunscreens? So is that something that can be quite commonly found in fish?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of these fish are filled with oxybenzone. People aren't even fishing on the coast. People complain at restaurants that the fish taste like sunscreen because they can't break it down either. So not only is the sunscreen landing on the coral and they're eating the coral, it's that strong in the waterways. If you go to any holiday destination, people are spraying it on and putting it on every 2 hours and jumping in the water. So
But
that shows the concentration of it.
So you were saying the volume, you were talking about thousands of tons. So even though it's just we just talk about residential cosmetic use and a little bit of spray every day, arguing against sort of like, this can't be that bad, can it? It does add up to a substantial number, you would say, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just go to Bondi Beach in Sydney and you just need to take a scan up the beach and have a look at it. So it's not just one person putting it on once in the morning. We're addicted, or people are addicted to being smothered in these smells and sunscreens that they're taught, and we're conditioned to put it on 2 times a day. Every 2 hours, most people. So they're taking all of those doses to the water. I remember we went to Fraser Island, and it's the pure water up there, Lake Macquarie, I think it was, Lake Mackenzie. And it's so pure from the natural filtering systems of the sand that you dive under this lake that's aquamarine, and then it goes out to a sapphire blue color. We got there first thing in the morning, dived under, and you're drinking as you're swimming underwater. I've never done that anywhere else in the world. Taking gulps of water underwater. It's so sweet and so pure. Absolutely beautiful. And then this bus arrived and everyone started spraying stuff on. Even I was choking on it just on the airwaves, rubbing sunscreen all over each other. And then the whole bus load of people just went into that lake. And I nearly cried. I thought, it does have a filtering system through the sand, but we're doing that in these little bays, which are suffering, and especially if they've got coral in them. I don't think we can put that load on them much longer. There's been a really interesting time at Anini Beach in Kauai, Hawaii. A friend of mine, Terry Lilly, is a marine biologist that's been filming out there every day, 30 years. And since we've all been asked to free up and go inside and not go to the beaches for 6 months, he's watched what was largely dead coral. I was snorkeling out there in Hawaii with him last year in October. Now and then would see a little bit of color, but mostly it looked like a wasteland there at Anini Beach. Since we've all stayed home, it's come back with abundance. He said he's seen coral he hasn't seen for 40, 50 years. It's teeming with life, just multicolored and growing faster than anyone could have known. The only thing that's changed is humans haven't been there at the beach. So that's a real live what's happened for the last 6 months in
That's
Hawaii.
great news.
Yeah, so it feels great that this coral knows what to do, and it's growing so fast, it's almost urgently growing, that it was just standing by, all the polyps. And we've got to remember it's an animal, it's not a plant. So
okay.
Yeah. So it's something, if we just leave it alone, it knows what to do.
Wow. That is fantastic. That's such a good news. That's really fast. Yeah. As long as some is left, I guess.
Yes.
They could come back. So what are the ingredients, just on a high level, that we see in good sunscreen, like your own? What are the things that are in there so that it works?
So the sunscreen essentially acts like reflectors. It's a physical barrier. It doesn't absorb.
That's what any sunscreen is.
Natural sunscreens, mineral sunscreens. Yeah.
Yes.
So it's the one of the ingredients in mine is an organic zinc. so it blocks it, deflects it like little mirrors on the skin. I use native plants. So in New Zealand, we've got a hole above us in the ozone, and there's really harsh UV rays that, you get quite sunburnt within 10 or 15 minutes here, as
I know
opposed to
about
a lot
that.
of other. Yeah, even worse in Australia. So our plants here have learned to adapt. For example, kawa is my main hero ingredient in every one of my remedies, but it's in my sunscreens, and it's learned to build up a UV resistance or an SPF factor. Tamanu, moringa, harakiki, these plants have their own SPF. So over the years, it's not the ingredients that I've changed, it's how I've tweaked them, the different formulations. So what they've done is all synergize together and infuse to get my SPF right up above 65. Um, yeah, raspberry seed oil, coffee seed oil, all of these ingredients have their own SPF. Some of them are 6 or 8, but when you combine them all together, you get a really good sunscreen. And the other thing is to eat oils and things like hemp seed oil. So we grow hemp oil, we grow hemp plants here in New Zealand, and this oil, when you eat it, so it's got its own UV protector, you're growing your UV protection from the inside out. So you're effectively emitting that, and you just don't get sunburnt. So I think we're designed to eat fresh plants and eat them with those biophotons, that pure light. And when you're eating seasonally and vine ripened or tree ripened plants, you just don't get burnt, because we're meant to be outside, right? And so when you're active and outside, and I don't get burnt. I now and then put my own sunscreen on, just on my nose and lips, or if I'm out boating, shoulders and things. But I just don't get burnt because I eat locally from these plants every single day.
Oh, that's so beautiful, and I know that there's certainly no notion that people understand. Like black currants, for example, is an obvious one that gets exported from New Zealand because the light is so harsh, the UV is so harsh that the plant has adapted to that. So it actually increased the skin, I think, thickness, and therefore the vitamin C content in it and certain things, right? And I'm
Yes,
sure kawa has done similar things. So maybe 100, 200 years ago, well, not even. Yeah, 100 years ago for sure, it would have been not the same plant with the same protection, but now it actually sort of, helps itself, but therefore us as well as an ingredient.
absolutely. Yeah, and I love that. I was taught by a very well-known seed bank person here that we are the seed banks. When you let a plant grow, you eat the seeds, we evolve with it, because it's a very different plant, the seeds that you eat, or the plants, the fruits that you eat. Then you replant it again, and it's evolving with what's going on right now, and things are speeding up. So if we're eating plants right here and now, then we're evolving that fast too, because our plants are tapped in, tuned in, plugged in to exactly what's going on planet Earth, all around the planet. And something I love is our New Zealand plants, like 80% of them are found nowhere else in the world. So this is a way, and it's a very smart way, really wise, of these plants of being so desirable and so gorgeous that we want to get them all around the world. So, you've got leaders, you've got people in every country now rubbing kawa, tamanu, moringa, harakiki on their skin. It's winding up, in their
Mm.
body as a superfood, and they're also getting that wisdom. We're only using fresh, plants, so they're evolving as fast as we are down here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So what I heard you saying when I spoke to you a day ago, so before this interview, is also that the laws are changing pro natural skincare, right? What have you seen happening around the world so far in that space?
Well, one exciting thing is Hawaii was the first to pass legislation, well, to announce that they are. It's going to be January 2021, passing legislation banning synthetic sunscreen, because they listened to a doctor that put out a paper here showing the oxybenzone kills the algae that lives symbiotically with the coral, and therefore the coral's bleaching and dying. It can't live without this. Mexico, all the eco parks there have banned it. Bonita Island, Palau Islands, the president there is one of my heroes. He took a stand and just slapped an instant $1,000 fine on anyone that's carrying the sunscreen, even in their bag, because it's known as an environmental poison. They've got 250 plus islands out there and a coral research institute. And luckily, the president makes the economic decisions in Palau Islands. In fact, my team and I were on our way there. We had our flights. He was going to host us for the week and was going to use eco sunscreen as, you know, in their resorts to protect their coral reefs. So leaders now are taking a stand. I'm hoping they get onto it on the Great Barrier Reef, because there's an issue there, obviously, with a massive part of the reef is now bleached and dying or dead already. So yeah, I think once this legislation hits, any business that is selling or tries to sell chemical or synthetic sunscreen will be fined or closed down. So this is really exciting, because now the stores, Hawaiian Airlines, you know, they all want to use our sunscreen as the official sunscreen, to be a spearhead to really get back onto the right track, because we can see that our coral wants to grow back. We just have to stop poisoning it and give it a fair chance. So this not only doesn't poison it, but it enhances it and enhances our health as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's really exciting, and I'm sure it will continue, because it makes sense that you want to protect, as a local politician, you want to protect the tourist industry. And if it is as obvious as this one, it's an easy one to get buy-in from other politicians as well, and of course from the local community, and say, all right, that makes sense. Plus, there's a replacement. That's the great thing about, I think, when sort of the ozone layer issue, the thing of the ozone layer came out, one really, really exciting thing about that Montreal Protocol, it was called, is that there was the substitute, and it worked extremely well. Like, in terms of we reduced the amount of chemicals going out that have an effect on that ozone layer by a huge amount. I actually studied a little bit of the legalities on that at university, and it was great. So I can connect that to your story and think like, well, since there is a replacement available, it will be possible to actually argue really easily that this has to be the norm, and it has to be anything else, any harmful substances have to be phased out.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a much larger, picture as well. It's as the coral reefs die, they drop 2 meters and they protect the high impact waves from hitting the shore. And I think this is what got the leaders really thinking, because these high impact waves now are hitting the shore, and condos are starting to crumble. They're starting to lose their foundations, and that's getting some big money behind it, because they're going, "Oi, government, do something about it. This is an issue," and you can see it along a lot of those Hawaiian shorelines. Terry's actually done a bit of filming around that. These massive waves are now corroding the beaches. Because the coral reefs have died and dropped away, and they're our natural boundary to hold the energy of the waves back. So that's quite a serious issue as well. And so it's in our best interest to really look at the environmental impact on how we can turn it around. Now that there is an alternative, it's just a swap mentality. Why would you buy that over that? Well, here's some really good reasons why. So it's a movement, it's something we just need to settle into, doing the right thing. It's just a natural thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. Jules, to me, coral reefs relate to sort of Pacific islands and really warm places. Is that, and hearing your argument that, look, with the 2 meter drop, that's basically equivalent to a sea level rise of 2 meters, which is intense. That's a lot. And I did study climate change quite a bit, and the implications of sea level rise there. From that knowledge, that's intense. That's a high that makes such a difference in terms of the power of a wave actually crashing onto the land and how far it gets into inland. But I can't quite remember, where do we find these corals? Like, do we see only implications in really warm climates, or would even places like like Sydney, like, you know, like or Europe, like Australia or Europe, be affected by things like that?
Yeah, well, you're just Mediterranean and a lot of the dive areas, definitely, where there's coral further out to sea. I don't believe there is coral around Europe.
Mm,
So it's just the implications of you putting it into the ocean if you start
mm, mm.
following the trade currents and trade winds and where that, you know, takes it. Ultimately, it's one big soup bowl, isn't it? It
Uh,
ends up everywhere because it doesn't break down. The Pacific Islands, yeah, we're working. I've built up over the last 10 years relationships. I call it the Seven Sisters, with women in 7 different islands. So I've just promised them a long, strong relationship where they're making our coconut oil in the really ancient ways. Um, you know, lime and passion fruit oil and the moringa and cacao and vanilla. And so just working directly with the woman there. And some of them are way out in the atolls in Samoa, and it's a problem because they're getting wet feet. You know, now and then with the king tide, the water's coming right into their lounge and their huts. Um, so it's a problem now, and a lot of the teenagers or the kids have gone to the city. There's not much work there, and the diehards are staying behind. But it looks like the islands are sinking, and you know, if we can really set this up as a grassroots business, then they can bring the kids home again. They can get back into the manufacturing and have proper little economies going. And we're counting on it because we get the purest ingredients in the world made with love by their hands in traditional ways. We've got a lot to learn from them. And we also need to take care of their surrounds. So effectively, they hand us the sunscreen ingredients, we hand the sunscreen back to them, and eventually I'd love to show them how to make the sunscreen out there to look after their own reefs. And then the tourism comes back, of course, because there's reefs teeming with life. It becomes their boundaries, and so it looks after the energy of the waves that are starting to, you know, encroach further and further onto their lives. So whatever we call it, climate change or poisoning the reefs, or there's positive ways of turning this around and starting a movement with as much momentum as these waves coming in. We can really just swap out, you know. It's as easy as that. I think we just got complacent, we got a little bit docile, and we were just fed marketing education rather than thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is not right. So now we're becoming more conscious with what we're actually doing.
Yeah, and I can see the younger generations are really driving that. You know, when it comes to climate change, that is certainly a topic that people really get and are really concerned about. But of course, also other parts. So there's a bright future ahead. And I was wondering whether you could picture a little bit of like, what would the cosmetic industry, so not just sunscreen, but maybe you've also thought a little bit wider of like in general cosmetics, like what could it look like, or it could be like a really positive and non-invasive and healthy cosmetic industry look like, and also, you know, sort of environment supporting rather than destroying industry.
Yeah, I believe now we're really, like you say, the younger generation are driving it. So this is very powerful because it's, mum, dad, why don't we, you know, look after the sharks? Or why are we putting all that rubbish in the ground? Or, you know, so they're driving it and what they're learning at school. I think they've just come in with this far greater wisdom. I believe the children being born now and this next generation, they're already wired for a purer world. And it's my generation that are just taking a stand to get that ready for them as stewards of now, but we're also stewards for the future. So exactly what we do today is making a difference. Like we cannot deny that every action we take today is feeding this next generation the world that they deserve. The cosmetic industry, I believe, because of all the buzzwords now, I mean, you never heard people go into a chemist before and say, so does it have oxybenzone in it, or does it have
Yeah,
parabens in it?
yeah,
These buzzwords are fantastic because why would a mum care? Well, she does care because now she realizes, oh God, what sort of future am I leaving my children as far as, you know, killing the environment? I'm trying to set a good example. Plus the children, there's this funny thing with plants and human skin and our olfactory and hypothalamus that when you smell plant medicine, or essential oils or something, it's opening, and your body gives you a full body yes. When you smell like mineral oils and chemicals, you kind of get it catches in your throat or something, and your pores close and it sits on top. But when you put on something natural, your pores open and an angelic choir starts and it sinks in. And kids ask for it. Kids ask for the natural stuff. They're happy to put it on and they ask for it. Whereas when you see kids screwing up their nose and getting whatever it is, even if it's mineral oils, that baby oil and things like that, or sunscreen, they're saying no on a big level, and I think we know it too. Intuitively, we know it, but it's that, or what other choice have we got? So the future feels very bright. Even the next 5-10 years, I think, is incredible, because a lot of our influences are heading towards the natural way. I mean, if you don't, it's bad for business. Like all of our courier and tape, and even our shipping materials made from mushrooms and compostable. And so you could slice the business anywhere along the line and see that we don't like plastics. We take this seriously. We want you to be able to throw your courier bag into the compost, or even the tape that's taping it together. So if we, me, one girl from the sticks, can make a difference with an idea and just bloody mindedness, then so can my neighbor and all my friends and family. And really quickly that momentum changes the way we do business, and we can do the right thing. We just can, or do what feels good. And what feels good is being guardians of today and guardians of our future. Our kids know exactly what to do with that future.
Yeah, that reminds me on the book The Silent Spring, because I think one Rachel Carson was saying, like, what is it? Don't wait that for everyone to to start make a difference. Like, if you think that's right, if you think that a small group of people can't or can make a difference, and you're right, because normally that's exactly what happens. That's how it happens. Like, it starts with a small movement, but before you know it, it's actually taken up by everyone, and then everyone claims that they were the first to do it. It doesn't really matter at the end, as long as as long as the change comes. It doesn't matter who claims. That's not what it is about anyway.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Once it gets momentum, it's amazing, and it's a cool thing to do. People jump on board. It's different, and it just, because it feels so good, it naturally brings you joy and bliss, and you feel like you're consciously doing right action or good action, and then your life just becomes better. You know that that's taken care of in your life, so it naturally brings that. There's no inner conflict. So there's no like, oh, this doesn't feel right, but I'll do it anyway. This feels really good, and I'm part of something bigger here. And so it does naturally bring joy, and let's do it together.
Yeah, I hear you. And wellness is one of those industries that even during the pandemic has done extremely well and has helped. Those types of businesses have really, they were thriving, and I guess the consciousness towards a more natural way of looking after your health, or looking after yourself, just comes in with it, and that's just so encouraging to see. I think it has its ripple effects, and I agree. I think the future is really bright, and the ripple effects will just go through all parts of society, and before we know it, we are in a very different reality.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it feels really good, and across the industries too. It's not just the beauty industry; it's really how we live life. And I grabbed an old 1959 retro caravan and brought it all around the North Island, and we took 10,000 samples out to the beaches. This is how I got my retailers. And we went to the boating industry, the fishing industry. Sorry, is that loud? Can you hear that? And even the boaties and the fishing guys are saying, we won't even use sunscreen. There's no alternative out there, so we just don't use it. And they were already switched on. The diving community, they were just saying, no, we just don't use it. We just cover up. So people have been thinking about that for a long time, but they'd rather abstain than using the alternatives. So it's already rippling out there. We're so ripe for doing great things with the resources we've got around us, but in a regenerative way, a sustainable way. So, for example, the way we do it, if you imagine a bush-covered mountain, if you go down in a strip and lightly prune the aerial parts. So it's like you're tickling it all the way through, going around, and by the time you come back 6 months later, it's bushed out. You know, it's bushed out three times as big. You're casting seeds as you go. So you've always got that 7-generation thinking. You're always looking after the next 7 generations as the 7 before looked after us. So with that way, we can regenerate, and we can always have more than enough, whilst looking after the planet. So it's just a shift in thinking, only a slight shift, but there's more than enough, you know, it's an abundant future, really.
I can see you make this work for you. I love it. And I know you're also making the community, you know, working with you in some other ways. So do tell us a little bit about your Indiegogo campaign. Like, what is that about, and what's the goal for that, and why did you start looking into that one?
Yeah, it's because I feel like this is a movement. I started off with Indiegogo a couple of years ago because I was just a mum trying to do a good thing in the world, with the sunscreen, and I was blown away. The community got behind me just to get my packaging and branding and everything sorted. And then I launched. I sort of tricked on my own for a good 17 years before that. And then it was time to call on the community, and I raised enough to really launch the company well. And now, to my surprise, we won 2 global awards recently, and I was really blown away. It was,
Congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, and it was out of the blue. It was a gold award for best plant-based product, not even the sunscreen industry, and a silver trophy for best ethical product. That's just brought me incredible attention in the media, and I've really got a high demand now. So the Indiegogo campaign is about doing the biggest funding run that we've ever done, doing the biggest production run. We're getting it out to Europe, UK, and into Hawaii and California and Florida, and they've all banned chemical sunscreen. So it's really taken off. I believe it's the timing. I've been bleating on about this for years, but now we've all caught up. The law and science and magic and our consciousness is caught up to the fact that we can do something really positive together. So yeah, we've just launched an Indiegogo campaign where we are raising funds to do the biggest production run we've ever done, 3 times as big. And I don't think we'll be able to keep up with demand even with that run, but that'll give us enough momentum then to really kick off.
Awesome.
So we've got some great influencers, across the board that want to run with that.
Brilliant. We will put the link below, but if people just listen to it and can't really look, what would they search for on Indiegogo to find you?
Earth's Kitchen sunscreen.
Great. And that's also a good one to Google if they want to learn more about your products, hey?
Yeah, some call it EK sunscreen or Earth's Kitchen sunscreen. And we're just updating our website with even where we source our ingredients. I believe people are really interested in that journey and where it's all weaving in from. You know, it's a global story. We make it, it's 100% owned and made of New Zealand, but we do have our Pacific Island partnerships. And to get this underway in such a big way, just from an idea, you know, and just taking action, just taking one step. I believe when you take a step, the path forms underneath you and 3 or 4 other magical things appear. So taking that action is incredible.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I teach forest aid. I used to take people out into the forest in the mornings, and then we would go forage plants, and then in the afternoon we'd make 15 different products that they'd take home in a gift bag. And my reason for that was just to take away the objection that I haven't got time. So they'd take away even dandelion and burdock wine, wildflower salads, all their own body scrubs, moisturizers, body oils, even sacred smoking herbs, not that kind, all kinds of vinaigrettes and joint and muscle rubs, insect repellents that they make with their own fair hands from our forest and wild weeds. And so I don't have time to do that anymore. So I've put that all online as well. That's called Forest Aid.
Wonderful.
And I call it Forest Aid because it's first aid, and it's aiding our forest as much as our forest is aiding us.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much. That's great. Hey, I do I do want to ask you sort of the three question that we ask every guest. But before we go there, there was one thing I just picked up on, and you were talking about the ethicality, like ethical cosmetics. Can you just quickly talk about the problem that we have with ethics when it comes to cosmetics? Because not everyone who listens might be fully aware of what the issues for often conventional cosmetics are.
Do you mean like what's in the cosmetics and?
Yeah, but I guess also, I assumed you would also mean maybe the testing of it, things like that, the sourcing of ingredients maybe as well.
Yeah. The sourcing of ingredients of cosmetics, I feel like we're educating ourselves on that as well. So, for example, palm oil is a big one that's used in a lot of cosmetics. And luckily, a lot of businesses won't accept sunscreen or other cosmetics that have palm oil in them.
What's the issue with that one?
Well, the way it's grown, and it takes out native forests in order to plant this palm oil. Orangutans are being dislodged. They're basically running on this burnt, desolate wasteland, and then they're being harvested or killed because they've got nowhere to go. So it's their native homes. So it's the saddest affair, and this is all because of our consumer demand for palm oil, which is in the food industry as well. There's many that are made from the petrochemical industry. It's not sustainable, and we really need to look at the origins of our ingredients to also take on that story into our bloodstream. And if we take it that deep and get philosophical about it, I believe it's like when you start researching what happens to our animals, why you stop eating meat. It's similar with skincare ingredients. When you look at how things are harvested or wrenched out of the earth, or whole forests taken down, it's not the way to go, because Mother Nature's given us a way of not only keeping it at a lovely wildcrafted or organic resources, we've got more than enough, but to regenerate, to keep it growing 3 times as bountiful. And that's my mission too. I see the forests all coming back. I see the coral reefs just flourishing like they used to, before 70 years ago. I really see that as our future. I see it because we're doing it, and I see it because it just takes a slight shift and swap mentality to bring it all back around. So we've got to stop this unsustainable practice and cruel practice. And that's the thing. We were Natrue certified and BioGro certified, so that means that it's non-cruel. It has a non-cruelty certificate with it. And we have to prove from seed right through to finished product in the packaging that no bunnies were harmed or no other animals were harmed in the making, manufacturing, and processing of every ingredient. And so let's start looking for those logos, even if you don't do the research yourself. Just get the confidence when you see that a certifying body has done the homework for you. And don't go for unethical practices anymore, because we really are taking that story into our lives. And it's a choice,
It is a choice.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Look, something that I would just want to comment on, what I thought was always amazing, is the cosmetic industry. And I don't know if is perfume a cosmetic?
Yeah, I'd say it's.
Or is it something else? Something else. That is an industry, if I'm correct, that is unregulated in terms of having to be tested to be safe for people. Do you know a little bit more about it? That's always my impression that I had, and that just stunned me, because if we go back to, like, you put it on your skin, which is basically you eating it, then that would be a really crazy thing to be. But it is, isn't it? It's not regulated.
No, it's not regulated, and it is causing problems. And there's a lot of issues out there. Like I say, there's been autopsies that these tumors are containing full chunks of certain, won't say the name, brands of cosmetics, creams that our grandmothers used and our mothers, and were taught to use this cream. It's the best, but what our body's doing is sensing it as almost like a plastic, or it's encapsulating it in a net, and then it's a rubbish pile that the body needs to deal with, i.e. a tumor. there's no real industry that's looking after the health effects for us. And even the FDA is letting through some really questionable ingredients onto the shelves as far as food, drugs, and skincare. The cosmetic industry, there is quite stringent testing in Australia and America, called the TGA in Australia, the Therapeutic Goods Administration. It's a pharmaceutical arm that governs the natural regulations. In New Zealand, the testing is quite lax, but it's getting better. So recently, Consumer New Zealand's been running tests and pulling a whole lot of products off the shelf that are making claims, not standing up to their claims as far as UV protection. And yeah, cosmetics, I think, is another whole industry that really needs to be looked at. And if we did, we'd be horrified at what's really going on, what it's doing with our bodies.
Well, let's hope that happens rather quickly. It can. So,
Yeah.
who knows what the future holds, but it sounds positive. And it's great talking to you, because whenever I throw something like negative or, questionable at you do answer the question, and yes, it is that bad, but, and then there comes a positive response as well. So I really appreciate that attitude. It's something that I certainly want to learn more. I love it. Thank you so much for doing that. It's awesome. Look, I guess I do want to ask the three questions to you, but I think the last one that I want to just say is like what can we do? Like, what is it that any one of us can do to look better after their health and after the planet? Obviously, using your sunscreen, no doubt about it. And we will go to your website, and I'm sure we can order it there, and we'll find it in more shops anyway.
Yeah.
Beyond that, what can you see anyone could do to help?
I believe that as long as we drink good quality water, and by saying that I mean that our water is a living, vibrant being, and without it, no one or no thing exists. So let's ensure that it is, knowing that it has a memory. So even I used to teach our kids this, to talk to your water. If you look at Masaru Emoto, yeah, cheers. We can say, I love you, thank you, to your water. If you look at Masaru Emoto's work, you'll see that the water takes on those qualities. So it's just incredible, the quality of our water that we drink every day. I won't let a day finish without eating something from the ground, from the soil, even if it's just a little plantain leaf, a baby dandelion leaf, kawakawa leaf off the tree, koromiko, anything, piece of salad from the garden. I won't let the sun set without that happening, because this is living biophotons, this is living light, and any plant carries that light for 4 hours after harvesting for us to imbibe. So we're eating pure light. So even those two things are holding the wisdom of what is happening on the planet right now, and it carries the antidote or the wisdom. So our intuition gets stronger with that. Definitely movement every day. Try and sweat every day, because our lymphatic system doesn't have its own valves. So it's our muscles that are milking the lymphatics to get the toxins out of our body. So the water will help with that. Definitely a beautiful diet, and be conscious of what we're putting on our bodies as well. Everything from washing our hair, scrubbing our faces, washing our bodies. Just question, what is it? And go as simple as using, coconut oil, which is a beautiful superfood anyway. Recognizing that fats and salt is a really, really powerful healer. I listen to what we're told not to do, and then I do the opposite, see what will happen. And often our health is incredible. So for the last 2 years, I've been going to the Health Sovereignty Summit in Bali and been on the panel and been part of it. We've had health experts from all around the world that have had a lot to do with healing cancer at stage 4, and all kinds of chronic illnesses. Each one of the doctors, naturopaths, mentioned salt. I'm talking about original sea salt or Himalayan salt with 84 essential minerals, is the bridge to our healing. Salt, protein, good waters, and to alkalize your system. So really study what it is to alkalize your system, because colds and flus can't exist in an alkaline system. They thrive in an acidic system. Gout, arthritis, dermatitis, sinusitis, anything with itis. Itis means inflammation, which is our main cause for most Western issues these days. Um, Itis is acidic, so anything itis can't exist in an alkaline environment. So get your greens on board, even taking a bit of baking soda and a shot of, with a bit of lemon and honey if you like, every day, fasting twice a year. I could go on, but
Love
I,
it.
re- I really believe in eating locally. Everything you need is within a 10K radius of where you live. Even if you can drink wild water is incredible. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, thanks. That was a great list. That was a great list. Now, let me get to my three questions I've been talking so much about. So one is, and you don't have to think too deeply about it, but what is it that gets you up every morning? What's your driver?
Gets me up every morning. The dog barking at the door. Um, what gets me up every morning? I bounce out of bed. I love life. I just, as you mentioned before, I'm just uncontrollably optimistic. Not naive, but optimistic. Um, I love taking action. I love adhering with action to a really good plan because I see results quickly. So I know I'm making a difference every day. Every day I'm inching closer to the world that I'm creating, and that's inspiring my children. I know that. So what gets me up in the day is just seeing what the day brings. Sunrise at the beach, or always barefoot on the beach, swimming. Our life in general, I get a lot of joy and bliss. I see beauty everywhere. So I am intoxicated by life. Can't wait to start the day.
I love it. And the second question is, what's your thing at the moment? What are you researching? What are you doing at the moment? Is the one thing that is more on your mind than it has been before? Something new?
Ooh, earth houses, cob houses.
Cool.
So building from local resources. We've just acquired a 77-acre property with our own mountain and own lake. So yeah, I want to build my own house.
Oh, I love it.
And also water. So we're building plateaued vortexing water through terraces and structured water. We've got our own springs coming out of the ground. So I'm determined to build the entire house, completely free energy. We're doing solar, hydro, and supplying our own water so we can absolutely switch off if we need to. Well, we're already off grid, but there's a couple of families and our children, just showing ourselves that we really can build a work of art with what's growing around us.
Great. Ah, that sounds beautiful. Is that in the South or in the North Island of New Zealand?
It's in the North Island. I'm
Mm.
also I'm doing my boat masters and seaplane license. I'm already a pilot, but I'm bridging over to seaplane.
Gee.
So,
Jack of all trades. Amazing.
well, I like the ocean and I love
Yeah.
flying. I've got no real excuse, just that it's how I get my jollies.
Oh, I put that on my bucket list too. That's a great idea.
Oh, good.
And the last one. Why do you think humanity exists? Why do you think we are here?
Ooh, it's a biggie. Why are we here? I think we are here with free will, and we are essentially the universe expressing itself through us. We're all on different levels, and that's absolutely okay. So I see life expressing itself in the spectrum through humanity, from the deepest underbelly to the highest angelics and everything in between. And I've just come to peace with that lately, that I spent decades shaking people and trying to wake them up, and it's exhausting. And I've realized it's none of my business. People's journey that they're on is perfect. It's perfect for them, and it's perfect for me to witness. So I believe we're here evolving, making a difference. We've got that choice, that free will. Some of us are born needing, and my son's like this too, just waking up every day needing to create this world that we see in our imagination. So we've got that choice too. And yeah, we need to be the universe expressing itself in order to see the bizarre and wild, weird world that we are, and choosing which frequency or fractal that we want to be on.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jules. That was an incredible hour. Thank you so much spending that with us, and thanks for being so inspiring to pioneer things. I love it. I love you being so thriving as well. That's really inspiring, and enjoying your life. That's really, really obvious, and of course, all the wisdom that you shared with us. So I wish you all the best. I wish your company all the best, and please go forth and conquer and make that sunscreen industry a better place for Earth and for the users. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much, Sebastian. It's been a real pleasure chatting with you, and I love what you're doing too. You're just allowing us to tell our stories, and you're providing such inspiration yourself. So thank you. It's been
Thanks,
an
Jules.
honor.
Wonderful.
Thanks.